Um, Now let's flip over to the other side of the line of scrimmage. Defensive line, outside linebacker. That was what was weird with my poll. I was really thinking that most people would be more concerned about the defensive line and outside linebackers than they were the offensive line. And I think part of the reason they didn't vote as highly for offensive line was because of the new coach. Defensive line and outside linebackers are now being coached all by Mike Dawson. As we know, he's now the defensive front coach, which is a real nice way of saying that some bitch is coaching 4-down linemen now instead of quote unquote a 3-4 alignment. You're going to see a lot more even fronts. Um, Here's just a couple of notes I made. I think this is a make or break year for some of the young guys like Nash Hutmacher. I think he needs to really step up. We know he can lift a lot of damn weight. We need him to take that weight that he can lift and shove some dudes for Iowa and Wisconsin back a few yards into the backfield. Is somebody like Jalen Weaver going to contribute? Is Ty Robinson ready to make a huge jump and be that anchor in the middle like Christian Peter or Jason Peter did back in the 90s? Caleb Tanner decided to come back for a fifth year, probably because he was going to be at best an undrafted free agent. And I think he needs to get himself to a level where offensive coordinators are thinking about him when they're game planning. And of course, Garrett Nelson's got a Wistrom-like motor, but I think he needs to take his game to a level where he's playing at a Wistrom-like level. I think he and Caleb Tanner both have the raw tools to make offensive coordinators stay awake at night, but they just haven't shown it yet. What do you guys think needs to happen on the defensive line? I'm going to start with you, Scott, believe it or not, my co-host, my cohort, my best buddy who keeps me in line every time we do a show.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I'm definitely concerned, to say the least, about our defensive line if we're going to take a step back. I would really like to see Nash Hutmacher step up to the plate, and no pun intended with that, because homeboy can squat some weight, that's for sure. If he can translate that strength onto the field and be just a dominating presence on our defensive line, that would be just a huge win. I'm kind of curious to see that 4-man front and see if we can really make that work out for us. I know we tried that 3-man front for the last 3-4 years, but I think that
5 years,
it's proven itself to be not. It's done good at times, but there have just been some moments where we get pushed around a little bit by the Iowas and the Wisconsins in the trenches. And with the size that we've got across our defensive line, I would really like to just see some more consistency and getting some more pressure pushed back to the quarterback. That's what I want to see. I don't know. It's going to be possibly a big headache this year. I think if there's any position that takes the biggest step back, I would say it's probably our defensive line for sure.
I'm kind of right there with you. I'm really concerned at that spot. I know we've got some guys that they're looking at in the transfer portal. I know there's a couple of twins that they've offered, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think they ended up at UCLA already.
Did they? Okay.
The Murphy twins from like North Texas.
Murphys.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we don't like them anymore because they went to UClans.
They weren't going to be good anyways.
No, they weren't. If they're going to UCLA, that's because they're soft, right? They don't want to play in the Big Ten. So good. We don't need them anyway. Justin, what do you think?
Depth is an issue. Depth is a huge issue. I mean, the guys that we lost last year between Deontre Thomas, Ben Stilley, and Damian Daniels. I mean,
a lot of snaps lost.
A lot of snaps, and they played a lot. So, I don't know. There's some talent there, but it's just by name. We have to see it. Like a lot of positions this year. I mean, God, if you look at this year as a whole, me and Derek were talking about this. This really feels like a year one for Scott Frost with all the coaching changes and all the players that are coming in. This isn't a year 5 at all. This has all the makings for a year 1, just with everything that's going on. So this is one of many issues, or not many issues, many concerns across the board, experience and coaching changes and the playmakers, just the play style, everything. It's I think we'll be okay. Shenander's a good coach. Dawson's okay, but Teote he was a really, really good coach.
Yeah, he was.
That's a huge loss for
but
me.
having one voice
losing
for that front
Teote.
four is going to be something down the road that'll be okay. But
Yeah, I mean,
gotta get those guys experience.
Go ahead, Derek.
I tend to disagree with you guys a little bit here. I get the depth issues. The depth is a concern. I will not disagree with that. But you give me Casey Rogers, Ty Robinson, Garrett Nelson, and Caleb Tanner on the line, I'm feeling pretty good about that. As long as Caleb Tanner can, I don't know, keep his temper under control and not give me 30-yard penalties.
Are you feeling as good about it with Mike Dawson coaching him as you would have with Teote coaching him? Just curious.
I mean, Dawson coached the defensive line for the first year, and they did pretty good.
Yeah, he recruited most of the guys that are on the D line right now.
Most of the guys that are going to
Oh
start.
yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with him
Yeah.
coaching. Teote was a good coach. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but I mean, let's not forget Mike Dawson was also an NFL coach who got snapped away from Nebraska to be an NFL coach.
Yeah, Dawson. I watched him at the coaches clinic. It was the first year, and I watched him. He was the D line coach, so I watched him doing D line drills and doing tape work. And I mean, he's every bit as qualified D line wise as he was outside linebackers. I mean, ton of experience, many years that he's been doing it. But yeah, Casey Rogers and Nash and Ty are all guys that he recruited to begin with. We had a coaching issue at the end of last season, numbers wise, where somebody needed to go. And really, we had one too many defensive coaches, so to speak. If Teote doesn't leave and you have two linebacker coaches and you have a defensive coordinator and you have a defensive backs coach, we only have one opening and we need to hire a running backs coach and a special teams guy. Teote leaving made it very convenient. Quite honestly, it's an easy move to move Dawson in, opens up two slots, and now we have our full-time dedicated special teams coach that I am a huge fan of Bush, and then we get to bring in a running backs coach who's a pro at it. But I think that the depth thing is really intriguing me because it becomes a numbers thing of 4-3 versus 3-4. It looks very different. I've seen the numbers where there's like 7 or 8 guys get listed as a defensive lineman. And man, that doesn't seem like a lot of depth for a 3-4. But if you go to the 4-3 and all of a sudden there's an extra 10 guys that are outside linebackers that get moved up into that defensive line, the number game starts to change. Those 8 defensive linemen really are just the 2 inside guys. This is like 1992 all over again. We're going from a 5-2 to a 4-3, and you're transitioning Dante Jones and Dwayne Harris and Trev Alberts from outside stand-up guys to get your hand in the turf and you're a D end. Outside D ends are moving into D tackles like Bruce Moore did, and it moves all the way around. The safeties were moving up to linebackers. We're not quite going to that extent, but Caleb Tanner is a lot more dangerous, in my opinion, as a defensive end with his hand on the ground than he is as a stand-up outside
linebacker standing there trying to read a play. Yeah.
I'm a 4-3 guy if I just had my preference. Now, having said that,
me too.
The 3-4 looked better at times than I've seen it at any point in the last 5 years. Last year, and Shenander knows 100 times more football than I do, and I don't claim to say that, but I think that there's elements. They'll probably do a little bit of both. If we're in a game against an Iowa or Wisconsin and we need extra bulk in the middle, we'll probably put in 3 linemen and be a 3-4, right? The 3-4 that they do. But when we're playing Ohio State and the Michigans and the Oklahomas, and we want to get some speed out there, having 2 D linemen in the middle, Nash and Ty, or then Casey Rogers comes in for one of those plays, but they're playing those 2 middle spots. And on the outside, that's where you have Caleb Tanner. I think Nelson's more than capable out there. There's a Mathis kid from TCU that might be one of those transfer portal guys that we could be talking about. Dude, I mean, that's, let's get some speed on the outside there too.
Absolutely. Anybody else got something to add on that?
Honke, are you not worried? Are you worried about depth at all on the defensive line?
I don't know if I'm.
Is there an obvious too deep?
I'm not worried about depth necessarily. I mean, we could name a bunch of different dudes. We could, the names are there. I'm worried about losing Daniels. Daniels was a difference maker. You watched it against Iowa 2 years ago, and Iowa averaged like 2.3 yards a carry or something on us, very low. And he was in the backfield. He's pushing that Tyler, I screw up names all the time, Linderbaum or whatever their center, who's going to be like, he's going to be like a first round pick. And there were times that Daniels just completely manhandled the guy. Mm-hmm. And Daniels was that difference maker. And Daniels wasn't on the field there the last game or two.
Run.
And there's times, right? And we started to see some of the difference there. And so, someone mentioned it earlier with Nash, and I think Nash is a great kid and everything. And I think he's super strong, and this is his chance now to shine. And we need a guy like him to step in there and just not get pushed around. I mean, we got to hold our ground with those two dudes in the middle, and then there'll be plenty of players around that can make the play. Hold the ground. This is Peter brother mentality.
Absolutely. Anybody else got something to say on the defensive line?
I was just going to say that to go full circle with the offensive line and defensive line, I think that those are the two positions that we are going to learn the most about the coaching staffs. We're going to see an Eric Shenander and Mike Dawson. We're going to see an Eric Shenander and a Mike Dawson really get the opportunity to shine and show their coaching skills on the defensive line and show their 400 IQ with their game planning. I'm really excited to see that. And then same thing on the offensive line. Well, not the same thing. Opposite thing on the offensive line. Like, I'm as agnostic as anybody when it comes to what in the world Donovan Raiola is going to bring to the table. And I think that we're gonna really see make or break really on both sides of the ball, but with completely different contexts. I have a feeling that Eric Shenander is as good of a defensive coach as we've actually seen him. And I really think that we might see a step back on our defensive line, but I don't necessarily think that it'll be that far of a step back. Like you said, with Daniels, I think that's going to be the biggest contributing factor to how far we step back, but roll the dice. How is Nash Hutmacher going to step up to the plate? And who knows, maybe Marquise Black takes a step forward. But yeah, it's completely opposites. Like on the offensive and defensive line, the narratives behind them. But both are I think the cornerstone of a successful season, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with you, Scott.
It all starts up front.
Yeah,
right.
We don't have time to get into it, but I was just going to say, I think we'd take a step back on defensive line and in secondary, but
I don't agree in the secondary though, Justin, because I think there's a lot of dudes that have come in that are going to make that secondary that thought they were going to start this year work that much damn harder, which is going to make everybody better. Tommy Hill, I don't know. I don't know if you saw the video on Twitter, but there was a pass or something thrown to Omar where Tommy Hill was on him. So it was two number 5s going after the ball, and both of them high pointed the ball at the same damn time. And I don't know. I know it was just one dang highlight, but I'm like, holy shit.
One thing that the
Omar's
Nebraska
6'4"
sports
and Tommy
media
Hill's
department does
6'1", and he almost outjumped him. So yeah,
Nebraska
I
sports
like
media department, they do one thing really well, and they make hype videos very, very well.
Oh, I get that. that.
They're not going to show the bad plays. That's for sure. I think at the very least we know that what we can't afford to do is we can't have a huge drop off on defense. There's a possibility. Certainly we're going to have the most successful draft that we've had in a number of years. And a lot of that's going to come from the defense. 4 dudes are going
to get drafted.
Yeah.
4 dudes at least.
And so we can't afford to have a huge drop off on defense. At the same token, last year we lost all these, amazingly close games. Well, if we didn't have the defense play the way it did, they wouldn't have been close games. We would have had probably a blowout or two against us if our defense didn't step up time and time again. So if the defense takes a little bit of a step back in some spots, it's got to be made up by having better field position through special teams. It has to be offense, converting drives into touchdowns. It has to be offense making field goals when they're kicking them, all those things. But the defense, I mean, it's going to be hard to replace on the D-line Daniels and Stilley for sure, and DeAndre Thomas too.
Yeah.
I think the linebacking core, pretty much brings back most everyone, and we could step it up there. I think there's a ton of talent in the defensive backfield. We're losing a lot of experience there with Cam Taylor-Britt and the two safeties, leaving. But I love Newsome. I think Hill's a great example there, and we've got some guys that have been, around the program for a while. Plus, they brought in, 7 dudes I think on the defensive backs, and it's everything from high school guys to FCS transfers to JUCO guys like Singleton to transfers like Tommy Hill from Arizona State. So it's not a lack of effort. There'll be bodies. We'll see how it works out.
Yeah, I completely agree. I look at the defensive line and I see that as a position on the team that could take the biggest step back. Oh, dear God. My dog just ran out here and he's begging to go outside. So, Scott, you can take it from here because I got to make sure this little old man.
I'll pick
goes
up that
outside
Tootsie
and
Roll
handles his
later.
stuff. No. You don't live with my wife, son. We don't need to be picking up Tootsie Rolls. So I'll be back in a bit.
All right. I think what my dad was probably about to say was, it's most likely that the defensive line probably takes possibly the biggest step back of all the position groups just because of all the talent that we're losing in that position. And then, I do agree with you, Justin. I would say a close second would probably be our secondary. There's potentially good fill-ups like people that fill in for the spots, but we don't know. It's all speculative. But I mean, what do you guys say? What do we move on to another topic here? I want
to ask Honke something.
All right, send it, bud.
So last year with all the super seniors coming back on defense, and the defense played well last year, right? Mm-hmm. They kept the team in games all year long. But with the number of super seniors that they brought back, would you say that they met expectations, did not meet expectations, or exceeded expectations for what you thought that they would bring?
Specifically on the defense or as a team?
Defense as a whole, because of all the super seniors that came back.
I mean, I would say they exceeded the expectations I had. Like, we weren't serviceable on defense. We were darn good at times. To hold Walker from Michigan State to 20 yards when he was putting up record numbers. They had 13 yards of offense, Michigan State did in that second half against us. Our defense at times was downright really good, but they'd be put in terrible positions time and time again through special team errors and gaffes and turnovers, and just they were asked to do so much that there were breaking points. Now, those 6-year seniors that you're talking about too, I mean, Stilley and Doman. I mean, my gosh, Doman, again, I'm a 4-3 guy, but whatever the hell position they want to call what he does as a 3-4 kind of hybrid nickel, whatever, he was just all over the place all the time and making plays in the backfield, but also making plays in the defensive backfield. We can't afford to have a major drop off on defense. We just that we can't have. But the other, it's a 3-part game, and the other 2 parts have to start doing their part too. I thought they exceeded everything I was wanting to last year. Did you see it the same way?
At times. I think one of the things for Nebraska was the defense would absolutely show up. They obviously kept Nebraska in most games, but there were times where they just did not show up.
I'll say
like
this.
The
Minnesota, Illinois. I mean,
that was the one that I definitely. I mean, it was the first half of Minnesota. Most notably.
Go ahead, Derek.
I'll say this. Like, I know Adrian Martinez kind of gets a lot of bad rep for not being a clutch player. But I think there's a little bit to be said about the defense not being very clutch towards the end of games at times too. when it came time to, we really need this stop, it seemed like they really struggled to get that stop.
If there was two areas that they weren't necessarily always a big play defense, so they didn't get a lot of sacks and they didn't get a lot of turnovers, and those could have been, one turnover. Think about the Iowa game. I think there was 3 dropped interceptions that we could have had all prior to them ending up making field goals against us. Well, that makes a difference, right? So there were moments where the defense couldn't get itself off the field, and I totally buy into that. I counted it up one time. It was either 44 or 46 points last year that were scored on us in unconventional ways, meaning not scored on our defense. We had a punt return for a touchdown, a kick return. We had a punt block for a touchdown. We had a fumble return for a touchdown, an interception return for a touchdown. We have an extra point that gets blocked and returned for 2 points. We have a guy that catches a punt in the end zone, throws it over his head out of bounds for a safety. We had multiple safeties on our offense. Those add up. Those points add up. And what it ends up leading you to is a historic season where we have 9 single-digit losses. Never has happened before in college football history. We had 8 losses by 1 score or less. Never happened before in college football history. We put up 239 points in Big Ten play, and we give up 239 points, and we go 1-8. That's ridiculous. I mean, you just the law of averages. You should go 4-5 or 5-4 if you do that. And so it's a bunch of little things. And one stop here or there could have made a big difference for us. I agree in some of those games, but my gosh, I don't know if it's just a culture of losing or whatever, but you got to find ways to finish close games, get them out, win it, just win it. We did everything to win Michigan State, everything to win against Michigan State. And we just kick it to the wrong side.
I just always think it's funny. You always see that meme on Twitter with the 3 Spider-Mans all pointing at each other. And it feels like Nebraska all over again because you can do that with special teams, offense, and defense. Like, no, it's your fault. Oh, no, it's your fault.
Yeah.
I mean, special teams easily alone cost us at least 3 games last year. Probably 5 or 6.
The special teams cost us a bowl game. Special teams literally cost us a bowl game.
Oh, easily.
Because the defense played well enough to be a 9-3 team. We've said that before on this live stream. We should have been 9-3 with the way that defense played.
If you
offense cost us 3,
end up with a block punt against Iowa and that gets returned for a touchdown, they don't get momentum, and I think we can continue to win them easily in that game.
Oh yeah, and you
completely, and you knew, like, I don't know about you guys, but I knew the second that happened, that game was over. I'm like, we're done.
I was in the stadium. Scott and I were both in the stadium, and as soon as that happened, they ran it in, and we looked at each other. We weren't mad. We weren't upset. We weren't anything. We just looked at each other and went, "Yep,
yeah."
We've been waiting for
Grand
this.
Canyon sigh.
Urban Meyer
waiting for this.
Urban Meyer, was notorious in his college years. Let's throw the Jacksonville year out of the way, but he was big into special teams. I mean, that was his specialty. And he talked about a book he read that said that if you block a punt, you're going to win 9 out of 10 games. And he goes, that stat has stuck with me for life. He goes, there's very few stats in football that 9 out of 10 times something will happen if this thing happens. But if you block one punt in your game, you're going to win it 9 out of 10 times. And I think back to, the last time we blocked a punt was Purdue 2021, 2020, I'm sorry, 2 years ago. We win the game. It's crazy. Yes. And actually a great game to watch. Go back on YouTube some night and just watch 1996 Nebraska against K-State. We are in game 4 of Frost. We've already lost the 19-0 game to Arizona State. Our offense is just, for the most part, just sucking. It's not really good. And we're playing at K-State, and K-State thinks this is finally the year they're going to beat us for the first time in 30 years, 28 years. Our defense did everything you need the defense to do. It just shut them down. Our offense couldn't do anything right. Special teams blocks 2 punts in the first half. We made 4 field goals in the first half, including like a 50-some yarder. Chris Brown was doing great. And you go into halftime, and it was an ugly game. We didn't look good because our offense was just stumbling over its feet. And you look at the score, and we're up 18-3. And I think we ended up winning the game 31-3. And we couldn't do a damn thing right on offense. I mean, it was just a struggling offense. But we won. And I would watch this, and I'm like, I'm watching a Big Ten game right now. We won with great defense and special teams. We blocked punts, but we also made field goals. Holy shit. 3 points here, 3 points there. Wow. Points are nifty. And you'd get done watching games any of the last 4 years. We'd get done with these games, and man, we put up 500 yards on this team. We have 21 points. How is, at some point it has to equate. If you're putting, and that's the thing when we watched Northwestern last year, it's like the point total finally matched the output. You're supposed to score
Right.
56 points when you run 300 plus yards on the team. You're supposed to.
Well, that was also the best our offensive line looked all year too.
Yep.
Was in that game, and that was with
And that was first game that
over there at
Prohaska
left
started.
tackle.
Yeah, Prohaska. That was his first game starting, and Turner Corcoran was on the right side. Yep.
Hmm.
Yep.
It's been fun, guys.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
1:35. Hour 35 into it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think we did it. I think we got it done. What do you think?
It was fun.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything.